I think this is the one that really jumped out to me and one that
Yeah.
I thought was
Yeah, look at that.
interesting. When you
50
look at, yeah, 51% right there. That highlighted in green and for good reason, right, Jeremy? 51% left tackle, 20% right tackle. Now, there seems to be some success in rounds 2 to 3 also, but what I'm noticing is that is the center and guard range. And for the Jets, they have a obviously top 10 pick. They don't have a second round pick, and then they pick again in round 3 at 72. I think, to me, does that not scream offensive tackle? And then you're making your selection in round 3 on the somewhere on the interior, whether it's center or guard, depending on what they want to do with Joe Tippmann.
It absolutely does. And that's why when you watch mock drafts from guys like Dom C, you'll see that he'll even go to the 4th round sometimes on some of those guys that are there, because this happens to be a really good draft on the interior. But often you'll see Dom C say, I really like that guy, but I'm not going to use this pick on that guy right now, because there's plenty of them in the middle rounds. And we have a lot of evidence right here that for those positions, it's much easier. And that's why I think a lot of us have been saying, because we have the versatility with Tippmann, we have this great flexibility where in the 3rd round, we don't just have to look at guards. We could look at centers as well, because the option to take a really good center, if that's our best player on the board, and move Tippmann into the guard position, is an option because of his versatility.
No, but I know it's slightly off topic, but just that while we're on Joe Tippmann, do you have a preference if you want him at center or guard in 2024?
My preference is based on what's best for the team after the draft.
I love that answer, because I was going to say mine is basically the same thing. If they go into next year and they find even go back further and go free agency, we have no idea right now where Joe Tippmann's going to play, where Elijah Vera Tucker is going to play. But I think at the start of free agency, when we see guys start to get signed, that's when we're going to have a better idea of, okay, the dominoes are starting to fall and where they could potentially be going. But specifically the draft for the interior, pick 72, or even the 2 4th rounders, those are 3 picks right there where they could take a long look at either center or guard, I think, anyway.
No, absolutely. And there's some names we've been throwing out already. And this is just data from pretty much every player right now starting in the NFL. That's where all this data is coming from. So it's a big sample, when you're looking at these kind of numbers. So it just backs up what we're saying, right? So it's like when someone says, oh, you can get a center in the 3rd round, and that's the way it tends to be. We're not just saying that because of one example. We're not, we're saying it because it's a fact. It's reality. It's based on real numbers. It's based on real percentages. Now, you could see also, though, the difference between the discrepancy between left tackle and right tackle, where an argument of why with that 10th pick we would really want to go left tackle, if we want the best chance of hitting. There's an argument for that, because the left tackle seems to be, the higher percentage, which is why I think Jet fans, there are a lot of them that are more excited about the guys that can play on the left side and have that versatility.
No, absolutely. And also, now I want to get your take on this too, but I think part of it is the tackles that go later aren't always necessarily afforded that opportunity to start. And sometimes it has to do with like just a talent level, right? Like you already have the left tackle in there, but it feels like more often than not, you draft a tackle in round 1, there's this inherent bias that you could put them in at left tackle and things should be okay right away. Whereas if you're drafting someone beyond that, I don't think you necessarily feel like they are, a comfort spot to be at left tackle right away. They start on the right side and then maybe eventually move over to the left side.
No, absolutely. I think there's that's a great point, that a lot of players start in a different place, and only when they've proven themselves, they move over and they move over to left tackle. That's going to help those statistics. But as well, on top of that is typically, or often, only the guys that are picked really high are even going to be given the opportunity to play left tackle. So, for example, a guy like Alt is going to probably have the opportunity to go right into right tackle, which is going to, being that he's going to hit, and I think we all think he's going to be successful, that's going to help the numbers for the left tackle position. And it's definitely true that when you take the weaker tackles, like the tackles that aren't rated as high, you typically start them at right tackle because you don't trust them to play left tackle yet.
Exactly. And then eventually, who knows? Either they get drafted at right tackle and they stick there, or after 2 years, you end up, adjusting it as we see fit. But something else, another one that you shared with me that I wanted to pull up is the hit rate or the success rate. I think that's also a good one too, right? So we showed the percentage of starters in each round, but also how likely are you to hit on one of those starting caliber? We know the number was 50, what was it, 53 in the first round. If you go to offensive linemen, again, we're just looking at offensive linemen here. Of the past 421 players, 147 wound up as starters for at least half their career. The first round has an 83% success rate. Second round is almost as good with 70%. Even the third and fourth round aren't too shabby in comparison to other success rates at other positions in the same round. But you almost don't want to, like, that 13% drop off from round 1 to round 2. And the Jets don't have a second round pick in this instance to even play that game.
That's the problem.
But yeah, that's the biggest problem, right, Jeremy? Like, they don't have that second round pick. So you're dropping to 83% to 40 if you wait.
Right. And that 40 doesn't reflect, that's not saying first year starter successful right away. We also know that there's a much greater chance that the first group of guys, right, those first 4 guys, top 4, top 5 on the board, have a much better chance of being a plug-in starter versus a guy that you take in the 3rd, 4th rounds, a Carter Warren type of player that may be a hit. He might be a very serviceable starter someday, but not guys. There's reasons why those guys slip, and a lot of those reasons involve they need time to develop.